Friends, the way I see it, Imagineering has kind of an impossible task ahead of them. We all know that Avatar is coming to DCA, but my question for you is, where does it officially start? Because Hollywood Boulevard at the edge has these two elephant pedestals. Elephants lived on those in the opening days. That could be where it starts. The transformation could begin right here, which would then mean that I would be walking in Avatar right now. And some Disney fans are very nervous about this. And that nervousness goes two different ways. Some people are nervous Avatar won't get enough space, and others are worried that it'll get too much space. So I thought it would be interesting to break down how much of this land actually sits inside of the future expansion zone. Could the whole front of Hollywood Boulevard be where it starts? Or does it start right here or right here? Like, where does this transformation begin? That's what we're going to talk about today. How much of this street should go away? How much of it should stay? And what are the consequences on either one of those decisions that they make? And I don't have the answer. I want to lay it out to you as a designer in option A, option B, and ultimately let you decide. Where would you make Avatar begin and end? So one of the things that makes this street, Hollywood Boulevard, so essential to DCA's layout is it basically is an extension of the main street that we come in on, Buena Vista Street. From a design perspective, it helps carry the narration and push you forward, creating a transformative experience that reminds you that you are indeed inside of Disney California Adventure. You know, the Disney version of an adventure in 1901, 1923 California when Walt Disney showed up. So if all of this were to get cleared, would it A, get you into the adventure faster, or B, make it feel very abrupt? But then on the other side of this debate, we all know how great Imagineering does when they have wide open space. Is all of this a constraint that's worth holding them back? Is it worth saving, or is it worth just pushing forward? So first, let's look at the argument of just clearing all of this out. So the number one argument right out of the top, more space gives Disney and Imagineering a better opportunity to make a much more in-depth and transformative experience. There are a lot of people that think that it's not big enough to do a full Avatar Pandora. This would obviously give them more space. When we all see what Disney was able to do with a blank slate for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, the transformation was magical. Same thing for what we saw built at Disney's Animal Kingdom. I mean, that was just literally blank space. They expanded the park to make Pandora, and the results is absolutely breathtaking. It doesn't take a genius to realize more space, better transformation. And currently, these facades do take up a lot of space, and I don't think that there's a lot of things in here that people are emotionally connected to. Sure, people love the animation studio, and they also enjoy Off the Page. Off the Page could find another home. Animation, that one would definitely be a loss. So if we're talking about an enormous amount of space that no one's emotionally connected to, kind of sounds like a win, right? So one could make an argument, do we really need to keep a bunch of buildings that are all designed to mimic a city that's just about, 30 miles from here? Does all of this add an emotional value that makes it worth preserving? Or is it best just to move as quickly as possible into a new guest experience that will take people someplace that is truly transformable, something that they can't find just up the road or really anywhere on planet Earth? When you look at it that way, you start to wonder, is all of this really worth fighting for? Because at the end of the day, Disney is in the business of selling theme park tickets. And what sells theme park tickets? Attractions. Only so many weirdos like me come to a theme park looking for facades and transitions and storytelling. Most people want to get involved in the rides. So clearing all of this out does create more space and potentially makes the Avatar experience include more than just one single attraction. And if you do decide to keep all of this, how much space do you need to create so that it's not so awkward that in Hollywood one second, in Pandora the next? there needs to be a gradient or transition space between the two different areas. So just by virtue of keeping them means that you also have to keep an additional space to go from idea 1 to idea 2. Perfect example of this idea is the space that we see outside of the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge entryways. There's just a natural transition point that resets your brain, resets your expectations, so you can fully go from one story to the next without it feeling jarring. And although Cars Land is a really great single IP land, it kind of sits in an island with a lot around it. So you never can totally get lost in Cars Land unless you go around the top point where Flo's Cafe is. But if this all goes away, DCA could have its first shot at a truly, fully immersive land. I mean, one that is unlike anything that this park possesses. So are they looking to up the game of DCA and put it on par with the competitor right across the Esplanade Disneyland? This would give it that opportunity, or at least a fighting chance to make something that is finally a must-see land inside of DCA. So ultimately, if you're Disney, it comes down to what is your goal here? To preserve the nostalgia, keep it all one fluid storytelling device, or are you going for scale? Are you trying to make something that makes this park truly competitive with Disneyland right across the Esplanade? As far as I can tell, that's what the real goal here is. And I think erasing everything here gives them the best shot at achieving that goal. And imagine for a moment, no matter where you're at with this debate, going right past the elephant pedestals and then instantly transforming where you're walking through a jungle and suddenly you hear those signature noises, you start to see rock work, you hear water, and you are long gone from being in a California adventure. And a what? You no longer know where you're at. That is absolutely possible if the land starts there and then ends right over where the Hyperion is. Could be their best shot at making something that truly competes with what they've already done on the East Coast, which is rough because they've already set the bar so high. But let's talk about if this doesn't happen, because I can also make a strong design argument for keeping all of this and having Avatar start in the buildings right behind us. Hollywood Boulevard does create a very easy and soft transition into the rest of the park. It extends the beginning of the park, therefore carrying out the story, and it's kind of the moment that brands DCA. Whether you like that or not, it's what it's doing design-wise. And so the problem with cutting this short, and you maybe have never thought about this, is it starts to create a visual identity crisis of what exactly is this park about? What am I doing here? And what are my expectations? All of those answers are clearly defined right across the Esplanade of Disneyland. Disneyland knows who it is, what its purpose is, and how it's there to serve you. Removing all of this and just throwing people straight into a jungle right when they go past Carthay Circle does definitely create a moment of like, WTF. So if this does stay, it just makes it a little bit easier to get to your final destination, and it also will help with traffic flow. And most importantly, removing this takes away the ability to do parades and community events. Part of what I love about DCA is when they do things like Ducks Day. I don't think they're going to take the ducks through a space jungle. I think the ducks are going to go down Hollywood Boulevard if they keep showing up. So the purpose of the street behind me as a design piece is to really transition you into what comes next. It's not exactly important what it is, but how it creates a spatial relationship to what you really came here for. The themed land, the themed attraction, that's the real idea of Hollywood Boulevard and how it works on a grander design goal and scale. You lose that ability, and you're just kind of shoving people into the next thing. So there's literally no doubt that this transition right here, this one could blend in really, really well. But the transition over by Carthay Circle, that's gonna be rough. Now there is a more bizarre play where they work on all of those facades and make it look a little bit apocalyptic and kind of slowly transition you into a Pandora where it's all rusted and kind of burnt out. But I feel like that would be very depressing. And I think in these times of where everything's at, I don't think Disney wants to project LA post-apocalypse. I don't think that's the goal. And even though you may not be aware of this, architecture is a language that we all speak. It informs us of exactly where we're at, what the mood or the vibe or the timeline is around us, and therefore it sets up expectations. When you remove that and people can't really figure out what's going on or establish expectations, suddenly the story that you're trying to tell gets lost because it doesn't have an introduction, it doesn't have an act one. You're just sort of like, wait a minute, where am I at? What's happening? So even though this part of the park isn't like it was on opening day, it is kind of part of the opening mindset and psychology of how DCA was meant to work. It may not be for you, but I'm telling you right now, if it were removed, you would definitely feel like, man, something is missing, this feels off. It's kind of the best part about a lot of design. You don't notice it. It's just there in the background guiding you through life. That's when design is its most powerful, when it's invisible. So retheming it could be controversial, confusing, and a little emotionally upsetting. Removing it entirely could be very jarring and not set up the proper signals to allow people to navigate the park in the way that you would traditionally do it. Maybe the happy medium is that everything over here goes away and then everything over here stays, right? Like giving you a little bit more Buena Vista, kind of taking you up to this moment right here, and then this is where you're fully in Avatar. So they can do that nice transition on the other side, but it's not so abrupt coming in the park. Maybe the half step is the proper placement, but I don't know. I want to hear what you have to say. I think for many guests, they don't want Disney to erase every piece of its history for Disney to feel like it's moving forward. So many people do love looking at different little pieces of the park and being like, oh, that's a call back to this timeline. Disneyland very much honors all of the different chapters that it's experienced over 70 years. DCA has a moment in time to preserve and honor its legacy or just completely erase it. And by erasing it, they're setting a bad tone that this place isn't special. It doesn't have a history. It doesn't have something that you can grip onto. It's just literally here as a fun thing, not a serious thing or an emotional thing like Disneyland. Disneyland has preserved itself into the actual fiber of our society and culture. DCA wants to go the long haul. It needs to kind of think about where is its place in this timeline. Is it ambiguous without history? Does it not matter? Should you not care because they don't care? Will it just simply always get a wrecking ball and getting torn down into whatever they think the next future 10 years deserves? You see, people care about Disneyland because Walt cared about Disneyland. People care about Disneyland because Disney cares about Disneyland. So DCA has a decision to make. Does it celebrate its past or does it look past it and erase it and move forward? This is kind of a big debate that they have to make. And like I said, Imagineering has a really difficult task ahead. Where do you start Avatar and where do you give up on whatever legacy or history DCA is trying to establish for itself? Not an easy decision. And yes, I am purposely staying away from talking about removing the Hyperion Theater or the animation studio, just because I don't want to guide you in one direction or another. I just top level, what's your thought? Leave it or replace it, I'm just fascinated. And that's why I would love to hear what your decision is. Where would you start Avatar? Where would you end it? How much of this do you want to keep? And how much of it do you feel is totally disposable? Would love to know, because I bet everybody has a different starting and stopping point, and I'm fascinated to hear what the majority of you vote on. Do you prioritize immersion or heritage? And do you feel like DCA has a heritage? And if it does it have one inside of Hollywoodland? Which part of this feels more like the spirit of Disneyland that DCA can capture? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm somebody who's spent years now shitting on the Hollywood backlot. So I'm certainly no angel, but there are elements of it that I would hate to see go away, because then it starts to not feel like DCA anymore. So by all means, let me know in the comment below. My name is Brickey. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you. And if you want to see a video all about what's happening next with Avatar, check out this video right here. Thank you so much for showing up, and thank you for being a part of the community conversation. I appreciate you.